Hi everyone, welcome to Hands-on AI. I'm Annie and I will join by my great coworker who is expert at data, Jeff. Hi Jeff, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hanny, I am Jeff. I'm a developer advocate here at Google Cloud, and I focus on data analytics, data engineering, data science, everything data related.
Well,
It's great to be
yes,
here.
yeah, I'm so happy to have you here. And today our topic is also about data, and we're going to talk about data agent kits. So Jeff, do you know what is data agent kit and why we want to talk about it today?
Yeah, so before we get started with anything, I just want to let's establish what the data agent kit is and what it gives you. Really, what it is, it's a Google built unified source for data engineering, data analytics, data science. It gives you skills, MCP tools, and it integrates with the environments that you already use, whether that be Antigravity IDE, Antigravity CLI, Claude Code, Codex, etc. It gives
Yeah,
us a number of different things like agent skills, kind of a library of data engineering, data science, data analytics best practices. So our agents are better steered in how to use Data Cloud. We also get MCP tools, which helps us securely connect to our data cloud products like BigQuery or Cloud SQL or AlloyDB or Spanner, etc. And then we also have integrations with extensions. Like we'll show you in just a second how to integrate this with the Antigravity IDE, so we can bring our entire data cloud real estate into a single view. We can see our BigQuery tables, we can use conversational analytics, we can search across all of our data assets with knowledge catalog, all in the extension. So we'll show
well,
that in just a second.
it sounds like it's game changing. It's changing the way we're doing data analyst, data. It's changing the way of how we work as a data scientist, data engineering. Even like it helps folks like me who don't do data much before, like, as a software engineer, it also helps me do like analyzing and modifying data. Sounds very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one thing it does is like for a data persona, brings all of my normal data cloud stuff that I normally keep in a bunch of different tabs all into one view for me. But it also allows me to converse with my data using agents. And as you just mentioned, for someone like a software engineer, you can use these agents to go talk with your data, to actually execute on your data and whatnot. So we'll show it, but it's really cool to see.
Yeah, can't wait to see it. Let's get started with how to set it up with anti-gravity. For those of you who don't know, after Google I/O, we have Antigravity 2.0, we have Antigravity IDE, we have Antigravity CLI. And what we're looking at right now is Antigravity IDE, and you can just download it from the website. And how we are going to set it up with Antigravity IDE, Jeff?
Yeah, so it's actually already set up. It's in the extensions. If we look at data agent kit, probably like Google Cloud Data Agent Kit, we'll find it as an extension in the extension marketplace in any VS Code fork. If you're using Claude Code or you're using Codex or using Antigravity CLI or Gemini CLI, you can also install from our GitHub repo. This is the extension. We can install it. I've already installed it. So really easy just to onboard. And when you do, you'll get this handy little data agent kit icon over here. And you'll get this setup and configuration pane when you first start. It allows you to see a number of different things like, here, let's just check this. I'll set my Google Cloud project, my region, my billing project. I can enable different APIs that I need. For this case, like we're using Cloud SQL, it's enabled. If it wasn't, I could just enable it. If I want something else enabled, I can just click it and this will enable my API. On the BigQuery side, we can look at regions. Regions, configure your MCP servers. This is interesting because it's just one click to enable like a BigQuery MCP, a Cloud SQL MCP. I could enable Spanner, AlloyDB, knowledge catalog, etc. So really everything that we're using in the data world, we can enable the MCPs with one click.
So the reason we want to enable those is we can easily connect to our actual BigQuery database. So basically, it's based on what project, how we're building our project, and what is the database we're using, we are enabling corresponding API and MCP. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So like if we enable the BigQuery MCP, then when we go to talk with our agent later on, it'll say, okay, we now have a secure connection because we're authenticating with our Google Cloud account. We're able to then converse with our data or converse with our agent, which will be able to call our data in BigQuery, write queries on our behalf, execute them, synthesize the information, and then return that back to us in this chat pane. So we'll show that in just a second.
So we just simply chat over here, like chat with our agent over here, and it will automatically using Data Agent Kit if agent think it's helpful to use it.
That's right. So it doesn't always call out to like BigQuery MCP, but if it thinks that, hey, I think there's a table in there that we should go access to answer this question, then it will do so. Yep. So we have MCP, and then on the settings, I also just want to highlight skills too. So these are agent skills, and we have a number of different opinionated skills that help the agent better understand how to work in the Google Cloud environment. One might be just like developing with BigQuery, for example. This is just a markdown file, tells the agent, hey, here's how you might want to think about working with BigQuery. It also has other resources like, hey, if we're going to use the AI.evaluate function, here's the syntax for it. Of course, this goes on and on for other services that we have access to, like Spark, for example. Spark gets a little bit tricky writing the code sometimes. So being able to give an agent additional skills from which it can pull knowledge is extremely helpful. So we could look at like ML tasks under Spark, and this helps the agent better understand apart from its, the knowledge that it was pre-trained on.
Wow, this is really helpful. It feels like I have a very knowledgeable like guidebook that even I don't have any prior knowledge on BigQuery or Spark. Now I feel comfortable, confident to using it because I have those skills enabled. And I know like a lot of people are still confused with the difference between MCP and skills. I think skills is more like a knowledge guidebook on how to better use those. And the MCP is actually it's actually tooling. So it's actually connecting to your BigQuery database and do the query, do the creation, updating, and do all those action. And skills is help you better creating those things. Not sure if that's a good, does that sound accurate to you or anything you want to add, Jeff?
Yeah, I think when we actually like write some prompts to our agent, we'll see skills and MCP in action, and we can show that off. But when we use these different models here in Antigravity, we can see like, okay, we can use a Gemini Flash model, for example. The Gemini Flash model probably knows a good amount about how to do something like write a Spark query or write a Spark job. But what it doesn't maybe know as much about is how to navigate the Google Cloud environment and use like serverless Spark on Google Cloud. So the skills help better steer the agent within Antigravity or within Claude Code or Codex or whatever you're using to navigate the Google Cloud environment. And the MCP allows the agent that you're talking to securely access that data. So I'd say like one of them is more of like a map or a guidebook, and the other one is like and that's skills. And then the other side is the MCP, which is more of the connector.
Yeah, can't wait to see the real example. And I want to see how we actually use different MCP and skill with this data agent kit. What is the example we're going to have today?
So we're working with a company called Cymbal Pets, and Cymbal Pets sells pet food, toys, pet supplies, both to consumers and to other businesses. And the situation that we find ourselves in here is our chief financial officer says, hey, it looks like our average order value is going down, and we need to understand why. And so as a data analyst or a data engineer or a data scientist, I need to get that answer back to the CFO. And I'm going to use the agent here in Antigravity to help answer that question for me. So it's a high priority ask from our CFO saying, looks like average order value is down. What's going on?
Yeah.
And we're going to try to answer that.
Cool. I wonder without this data agent kit, the traditional way, how are we going to analyzing it?
Without the data agent kit, yeah. I mean, it would be going into the data itself. It would be going into the tables, writing the queries yourself, writing probably quite a few queries, and trying to figure out where is this happening? Is it like we're selling fewer products, or we're maybe discounting products in the wrong way, or people are getting figuring out ways to get our products cheaper. Maybe we have a billing issue. Maybe we're not getting paid. There are a lot of different tables we might need to navigate in a lot of situations in which we could a lot of avenues to explore where the average order value would be decreasing. And it's a lot of manual work. Maybe it's something you've seen in the past, so you might be able to go answer it quickly. But in the traditional world, or the older way of doing things, it would be quite a task.
Yeah, I know. I also, just to give our audience some more context, I'm curious, what are the databases we're going to be using today? You talk about we have this pet supply company. I love pets. I like the story. But now we are trying to answer the CFO question that how to analyze this data. But where are we storing those data? What are the data we have right now?
Yeah, so there's data in a couple of different places, and I actually want to show this I'll show you with the data agent kit. So given that we have this extension, we also have a view into our data estate. Now we could go into the console.cloud.google.com, right? The cloud console, and we could look at BigQuery, and we could look at, because that's where some of our data is stored, and we could look at those tables. And then we could go to another tab and we could look at Cloud SQL. That's somewhere else we have data. And then we could go into another tab and look at cloud storage, which is where we have other data. So we could do that, but with the data agent kit in this extension, we're able to look at all of it in one unified place. So I'm going to look at my catalog, for example, and under my catalog, I have tables in BigQuery, and I have like an orders table, for example. I can preview that here. I can see some of the data. If I get rid of the agent manager, okay, yeah, I can see the data. I can see the schema for the table. I can look at some details about the table, right? It's like almost 2 million records here. Order items, a different table. I could look at that. But I also have data in Cloud SQL. I can take a quick look at that too. Actually, let me search for it. So I can search across all of my data assets, and I'll look for something like pet profiles. So I have pet profiles, and if I open this up, it opens up the preview of the table, or the schema here, and the details that we could have expanded. We could have expanded this on the left-hand pane, but by searching it and then clicking on it, we're able to see everything right here. So long story short, we have a few tables: customers, pet profiles, and products, all in Cloud SQL. In the BigQuery side, we have our larger orders tables. And then in cloud storage, we also have some data. We have like a JSON file in cloud storage. So the nice thing about this is I don't have to navigate to all of these different tabs within the cloud console. I can view all of this within my IDE instead. Now, if I had Spanner, AlloyDB tables, anything like that, I could do that too.
Well, that is so convenient. And also, I'm curious, is that a very common practice that we have our raw data in cloud storage, and we have our we're using Cloud SQL as transactional database to do some query, and we are analyzing our large amount of data in BigQuery? Is that the normal, common practice when we're doing data analyze? That's why we're using different type of database?
Yeah, of course. We're usually not putting everything in a single database. Depends on the use case, but in many companies, we find that people store data in two different types of databases, one being a transactional database like Cloud SQL, which is great for really highly concurrent row store. It's super fast when we need to update specific rows. So we need to update, or we're adding a new customer or something like that. and we want to update the address for a customer. And that's why we have the customers table in a transactional database in Cloud SQL. On the other side, we have an analytics database in BigQuery. And this is a columnar store. And what it's really good at is doing things like aggregations. So on the BigQuery side, we have all of our orders. And if we want to answer a question like how many items did I sell this year? BigQuery is really great at doing that aggregate across all of these rows. So we have I think 2 million rows in the orders. We have about 4 or 5 million rows in the order items table. This could be billions of rows too. BigQuery will be able to handle all of that. So there are two different use cases for why we'd have data in different databases. We also have some data in cloud storage because we might be working with a team who doesn't use databases and they can upload things to cloud storage, but we can pull that too. Cool. So this is very common.
Yeah, thanks for answering the question. Are we set up any connection between to sync those data? If you're, is there any data sync usually happening if we're using different type of database? Just curious.
To sync between the two different types of databases?
Yeah, for example, if you're uploading things to Google storage, do we set up certain connections so that it will also reflect in the Cloud SQL or BigQuery, stuff like that?
So there are a couple of things you could do. I mean, you could sync your data over from Cloud SQL into BigQuery so that you have it available in BigQuery for something. That's a possibility. In the case that we'll show today, we don't sync between them, but we have a connection so that BigQuery could query, we have a JSON file in cloud storage, and BigQuery can query that. Or BigQuery can query the data in Cloud SQL. Using federated queries, it can go in and say, hey, I know this is in Cloud SQL. Let's pull over the results into BigQuery. So that's a possibility too. Cool.
Yeah, just know if you want to learn more of it, we have a previous episode about it. And okay, let's go back to it. And now we know all those data and different type of database. So what's next? How we are going to use this data agent kit? I know that.
Sorry, go for it.
Sorry, I know it's obvious. One of the biggest advantages is everything is in this one place. But now, how we're going to use data agent kit to analyze the data?
Yeah, so we can view all of our assets here in the data agent kit in this extension. But what we want to do next is actually answer the question that we got from our CFO. Why is our average order value going down? And so I'm going to just start chatting with my agent to try to figure that out. So I'll bring the agent back. And of course, we have a bunch of different models we can use. I'm just going to use the Gemini 3.5 Flash model. And I'll say, can you calculate our average order value from August 2024 to January 2025? That's typically when our data is in this use case. And I'm going to actually tell it to use some of these different tables in BigQuery. And we'll get a little bit less hands-on, but we're going to be a little bit prescriptive with this query here. So I'll click submit, and we'll see where it goes. And we can start to see the thinking from the agent here as well. It's going to get the project.
Are we going to see how it's going to using MCP server or skills to interact with BigQuery?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see it right here. So it's actually, it got my, the agent got my G-Cloud config, it got my project and everything like that. And now it wants to call the list dataset IDs tool using BigQuery MCP. So this BigQuery MCP was obviously installed. We showed it just a second ago in the in this quick start guide. Get started. We have the BigQuery MCP configured here. So it's able to call that. And now it's asking, hey, can we call it? It's asking me permission now. Do I allow the MCP to use this tool? And I can say, yes, allow it this time, or yes, allow always, and it will continue to allow that. Or I can say, no, don't do it. I'm going to click allow this time, and I'll probably click always allow in just a second as we start to see more and more requests come through. Again, list table set IDs. I can kind of have that control to see what's going on. What is the agent doing? Because maybe I don't want it to pound my database or my data warehouse with a ton of queries that I don't agree with.
And all those tools are already existed in this data agent kit, right? Like how to list certain things in a query from this BigQuery data.
So the data agent kit here has MCP, which has access to different tools. One of them might be listing your data sets. One of them may be listing your tables within a data set. Another might be executing SQL or executing read-only SQL, these kind of things. So these tools are available, all available within the MCP servers that we've installed using the data agent kit. Yep. And it completed and gave us a response. Of course, if it says it worked for a minute, we could expand this and see exactly what it worked on. The MCP tools it called, the output, input, things like that. But here's our answer, is that the monthly average order value summary is right here. And we can see the average order value, let's look. Over time, it decreases in January 2025. So it's usually around $110 or so per order. And it decreases to about $103 or so in January 2025. So this is probably what the CFO is asking us about.
Yeah, now we have a better answer.
In the agent, yeah, we do. And the agent also gave us some additional info, like here's a SQL query you could use, and here's a summary. So we get a little bit of info, and depending on the day and how the agent feels and how the model feels, you might get different answers. You likely will get different answers in terms of what it responds with. That said, you should still get this kind of info because we are using the same data every time.
Yeah.
All right, so let's ask a follow-up and say, okay, January looks lower than prior months. Can you break down the average order value by order type to see what's going on? So we want to drill down and try to figure out, this is exactly the type of workload that I would do as a data analyst or a data scientist to figure out what's going on here. But as you saw, the agent just ran a number of queries for us and tried to get at the root of that. So we asked, sorry, go for it.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you. I'm just curious, like, so the agent, once you ask the question, agent gonna do the reasoning and gonna decide, first off, I'm gonna use data agent kit to talk to my database. And then, and based on user's need, I'm gonna use either list or query or different type of tool. And then it's just using the tool for you and interacting with the database. And so it's doing all the thinking, analyzing, and actually do the query for you. So you just need to use the natural language to communicate with agent, and it will do everything for you and give you the result of the analyze. Is that?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So we just asked that natural language question. January looks lower than prior months. Figure out why. And you can see the reasoning here, as you just mentioned. A dry run in BigQuery, which is like, hey, is the syntax that we're using correct? So it's nice that it actually used a dry run before hitting our actually running a query that would cost money. It probably thought that, and then actually executed the query itself. It got some output and then parsed that output for us. I mean, this is a large JSON, hard to read here. And then analyze it. The reasoning analyzes, okay, this is the result. Let's put this into something that Jeff can actually understand. And he gives me a nice table here.
Cool.
So the result is, all right, the drop in the average order value is due to a new order type, B2B, probably business to business wholesale. Prior to January, they were only online and offline. And in January, we got all of these orders with a much lower average order value from B2B wholesale.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Yeah, wow. I feel like now even I don't have data analyst background. With this tool, I can just talk to my agent and rely on its reasoning process and rely on those tools to interact with the database and get a result of what I want. It's super like mind blowing. I feel like I can now be a data engineer. maybe. With,
Yeah,
with
it's really a new way of doing things. I
yeah,
mean, traditionally I would run all of these queries, I'd probably get a bunch of syntax errors, and then I would come back to it, and it would take a lot longer than it took this agent to do this, and get the results back. So it's great. All right, so I want to figure out who those business to business customers actually are. So I'm going to say, who are these B2B customers? Pull up the profiles. I think the profiles table is in Cloud SQL, I think. So we can see now that the our MCP is looking for Cloud SQL rather than BigQuery, as it was before. So I'm going to allow this. It's going to list the instances, get acquainted with like what it actually has access to, and then it will probably start querying the tables themselves. And of course, if we wanted to track along, we could watch all of this or audit it afterward. All right, a lot of queries going through. But it's trying to get acquainted with what's actually going on, and or like what the tables are, and like this will be stored in our like short-term agent memory as well, so it won't have to go back and query everything every time we want. But this was the first time we'd ever queried these tables using this agent. So B2B customers are stored in a Cloud SQL database in the customers table. That makes sense. And it says that these are 100 business accounts. They're categorized as business. Makes sense. We get the breakdown of the companies themselves, the geographic distribution, some sample profiles, and then a summary. So interesting. We get some info on who these customers actually are. So we asked to pull up their profiles, and we got quite a bit of profile actually here.
And now CFO is happy with all the result.
What's that?
Now CFO is happy with all the result.
I don't think the CFO is happy yet because they don't know exactly what's going on. So I think we're going to need to continue asking more questions here.
Cool.
Before we do, I do want to show that, we're showing everything here in the Antigravity IDE, and it works pretty well here. We're showing this, and we're getting these answers back very quickly. But earlier we claimed that we could use this on other tools too. So I'm going to bring up Claude Code.
Wow.
And just see if we can run this there too.
Yeah, all right. I think we're looking at the Cloud Code right now. How do we set up Data Agent Kit with Cloud Code? As you mentioned before, it's extension. How do we install this extension?
Yeah, so with Claude Code, with Codex, with Gemini CLI, with Antigravity CLI, with a number of different other tools, we use a plugin. And the plugin is on GitHub. It's all open. You can modify it anyway, but you can also install this plugin. And we'll see we already have it installed. If we look at plugins, we see we have the Data Agent Kit installed, and that comes with a number of different, it comes with our skills and our MCPs. So we could check MCP, and these are all Data Agent Kit MCPs. Some of them aren't set up just yet. Some of them, the ones that we need for this case, definitely are, so we should be good to go. So yeah, we install the plugin. It's either on the marketplace, on the Anthropic marketplace, or it's in GitHub. So we'll add those links to the description below, but check those out afterward. So it's very simple, just /plugin install and then add the plugin name, and we're good to go. Now, I want to ask the same question that we asked just a second ago in the Antigravity IDE, right? Calculate our monthly average order value between these two dates. And we should see a similar workflow occur, right? Where it's asking me, hey, I want to use the BigQuery toolbox. I want to search for these tables. And it's using the Data Agent Kit MCP server to actually securely access that data in BigQuery, write those queries for us, and come back with our results. So very similar to what we saw in the Antigravity IDE. It's just another tool. So we want to make this available for any tool that you might be using. And we get the results back. And this is the exact same results that we just saw over on the on the Antigravity IDE side. And of course, we could follow up and ask the follow-up question, right? January looks lower than prior months. Break it down by order type. And of course, it's calling the, again, the Data Agent Kit BigQuery toolbox, and we should get a similar answer pretty quickly. Now, all right, cool. Here we go. And we can see again, very similar result. The culprits, B2B wholesale, these new business to business item or customers who didn't appear until January 2025. So we get a similar story, but we're just asking different questions, or sorry, we're asking the same question to a different tool. So we're getting these answers back.
Well, cool. So Cloud Code can also access Cloud SQL just as what we saw in Antigravity. That is pretty powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, any of the databases that we give MCP access to, Cloud Code can also access. So, what's the next thing we want to look at?
Oh, I see. There's another question that we have the promo code in BigQuery table, but we want to check what promo codes appear on B2P or B2P order. Like, how do we find this information?
Yeah, so let me bring up Antigravity IDE again, and I can ask that, right? Like, I thought there was a promo code in the BigQuery table for B2B orders. What promo code occurs with the B2B wholesale people? So these new customers who just started in January and have a lower average order value. And I'm going to say check on BigQuery. I don't want it to check locally, so I'm going to just kind of gently nudge it back to BigQuery. And
there's a way to check locally?
Well, so the agent was actually just trying to look on my local machine, like, do you have something there? And I don't. So I just nudged it back to BigQuery, and it's continues there. Now what we see here is on the B2B wholesale orders, there's only a single promo code, big order 25. So what it finds is there's this 25% discount code for these people. And that's probably where the lower average order value is coming from.
Well, so we get a clue from asking this question.
Yeah, so we get that clue. So that's part of the mystery that we're trying to solve. Okay, so the average order value for these people has gone down. It looks like they have a promo code. It's all the same promo code. Almost all of them use this promo code. 92% of the people use this. So let's take a quick look then about where is the promotional campaign info stored. Now, the promotional campaign team works elsewhere, and we know that they store their stuff in cloud storage. So we ask, okay, check our GCS bucket. And our agent's going to go in, check the GCS bucket, look in the bucket. It finds a JSON file, and it will probably ask to look at, it's going to cat the file so we can look at the results, and it's going to look at the results and then interpret them for us. So the JSON file is what the marketing team uses to coordinate these ad campaigns.
Any type of data in GCS can be examined by this tool?
So it just used the gcloud CLI command for that, actually. So this wasn't even part of the data agent kit. It actually used the gcloud CLI to go and find that data for us. And now it's probably matching some of that back to SQL, to our BigQuery data to figure out okay, we found this data in cloud storage. We also know there's this data in BigQuery. Let's put that together and figure out what it means.
Do we have to install gcloud CLI for this question?
It's good. You do need gcloud installed on your machine in order to authenticate in the first place. So when you have gcloud installed, you can use gcloud CLI commands, but you are going to need this to authenticate using the gcloud auth commands in order to use MCP here in the first place. So we've already done that beforehand.
Gotcha.
All right, so it says we've located a promo campaign here in GCS. The file contains the details for that promo code that we saw. Specifically, here's the details, right? It's a campaign for a business-to-business wholesale push. And we get a bunch of other information that is probably useful. But yeah, we get what it means and the summary of the work done as well. So the agent continues to communicate with us quite a bit of information here. So I think that what we're finding here is that the average order value dropping in January wasn't a business decline. Nothing actually got worse. It's a result of lower value wholesale segment that was added to our portfolio. And because there's a really large transaction volume, it pulls this like top line average down, even though like every existing retail channel that we saw earlier in terms of online and offline are healthy. So although average order value is decreasing, it's actually because of this additional line of business that we never had before January 2025.
Well,
so not actually a problem.
Yeah, so we have a much bigger, a much better understanding of this problem. And now we have to decide how we can continue investigating this issue.
So to continue investigating, to make sure that that we can solve these problems in the future, we could set up a pipeline using dbt in order to check to like automate this type of analysis and checking in the future. So I'm going to ask like, hey, I want to productionize this, and I want to build a dbt project that creates staging models in BigQuery in order to get this going.
So do you mind quickly explain what is dbt and why we want to use dbt in this use case?
Yeah, and let me just set this to allow. So dbt is data. It's abbreviation data build tool, and I'm just going to allow all for dbt. And actually, I don't even have dbt installed right here, but it's going to install on a local subshell for me and run this for me. So pretty cool to see. And I also, I guess, sorry, Andy, before I get to the dbt part, the agent created an implementation plan for me, which I can comment on and change if I want, but I'm not even going to read this. Click proceed and hope for the best. Keep my fingers crossed while I explain data build tool. So dbt data build tool is an open source framework that allows us to write SQL transformations as kind of versioned and tested dependency managed models. So it's really a way to better treat SQL like software engineering. So without dbt, your data pipeline is just like a collection of or a folder of SQL scripts that you might manually run in order or have some sort of orchestrator run in order. dbt sees the SQL files as models that you declare with dependencies and then figures out the best way to execute these in a specific order, runs those models, runs automated tests against the output. So if something breaks, we know exactly why. And it's very popular in the data analytics, data engineering world. Because there's no dbt installed on this computer, it's installing it and then it's writing all of this code for it. And we can see like here are all the files it proposed. And we can see these files start to pop up as it's creating these YAML files, these text files, eventually these SQL files. We'll see all of these and we'll be able to accept them or reject them. Now, in the IDE here, in the Antigravity IDE, we're still looking at the data agent kit. But if we just go to our Explorer, we're going to be able to see everything that's being created. So under dbt, we see models, marts, staging, etc. And this is where our files are actually being populated as the agent creates them. The agent created all of these dbt files and it created this, mart, these models, the mart, staging, etc. And now it's actually running the dbt build to see like, does this work? So I asked, basically, can we automate this in the future? Can we build this pipeline? And then it's going to build it for us and it's going to run it to make sure that what's being built actually works and that the tests pass. All right, looks like that was good. And then it gave us a walkthrough. So sometimes the agent does this. It gives us like a planning stage and then gives us a walkthrough. And we can look at the walkthrough if we wanted to, but basically says what happened, what was tested, is it valid, everything like that. So the TLDR here is that we now have a dbt model that can be reused over and over in case we want to check average order value in the future.
Okay, so that's pretty cool that we not only get the insight when we're analyzing the root cause, we also able to figure out a way to prevent this from happening, or like understanding this in the future, similar situation.
Yeah, that's right. So when this happens in the future, we can just say, all right, we're going to run, we can use DBT to run this similar analysis pipeline, and this can continue to run, say like every hour, every week, every day, whatever interval we'd like it to run on, so that we know that our average order value is looking correct.
Cool.
Now we could also ask for more info. I'm going to accept all of these changes, accept all of the code. I can also ask for, to enrich the customer data, enrich what we have right now with customer and pet profile data. And that is in Cloud SQL. So we're saying, hey, DBT, I'd like our model to have additional info. And let's see if it can pull that in too. And part of that query that I just asked was also keep the uniqueness test on order ID. Now, why I'm saying that is when we think about orders and we're joining to customers or pets, an order, when somebody makes an order, they might have multiple pets. When you join these types of when you join tables like that, an order to a pets table, it might be a one-to-many join. And if that's the case, what's happening is we might be duplicating or even greater our data. So imagine like an order that I made, a $100 order, and imagine that I own 3 pets. If I do a standard SQL join connecting my order, my $100 order, to my pets, and I have 3 of them, that could duplicate my order into three new rows. So $100, $100, $100. All of a sudden, our revenue looks like it's $300 instead of a $100 real order. So that's definitely a problem, and that's a really big problem that our CFO would not be happy with.
How do we help prevent this happening?
Yeah, so I asked DBT in this query. I asked to keep the uniqueness on order ID.
So the uniqueness is the key.
Yeah. So what we could do here is if there are multiple pets in an order, we could aggregate them into one single row. So in the pets table, the pet profiles table in Cloud SQL, we might have one row per pet. And when we join it back to our orders table in BigQuery, and we want to make sure that it's a one-to-one relationship rather than a one-to-many relationship. So we're asking, hey, can you, we're not actually telling it to do this, but it will probably aggregate all of the pets per person or per order into one row and then join across one row. And it looks like it's complete. Yeah, so DBT build, compile and DBT build all successfully passed the tests, and it verified the data in BigQuery. So actually, if we went to BigQuery, or if we opened our BigQuery tables right now, we would see all of these DBT tables as well. And when DBT is running, it's also creating these tables for us, and we can see all of these now exist. We could take a look at them all within Data Agent Kit here. In the Antigravity IDE. So this is good. I'm going to accept all. I could commit these files that we just created to GitHub or any other repository that I'd like. So the TLDR basically is that we had an agent build a DBT pipeline that enriches our BigQuery sales data with Postgres customer profiles and customer and pet profiles. And that triggers a fan out bug that fails a uniqueness test, but we were able to constrain that so that there is no uniqueness issue. Then the agent was able to read the error log, self-diagnose anything that would go wrong, and write the SQL to pre-aggregate and compile a self-healing pipeline.
Wow. So it sounds like it's definitely productivity tool for any like data engineering. Like, so what we've done so far is CFO asks this question, and we simply just iterate, like talking to our agent, and we understanding what's going on, and we also talking to this agent, set up DBT, so that in the future we don't have to rely on agent to have better insight of this situation. And I see this is not only a productivity tool for data engineering, it also extend ability of builders like who don't have data engineering background. For example, if they're only doing software engineering, or they're architect, or even they never code before, if they want to have better insight, if, for example, if they run a small business themselves, they want to have better insight of how to increase their income, or they want to analyzing their social media situation. If they're a content creator, many different situations, they can using this tool, talking to the agent, and rely on the agent. And if they have the data in the Google Cloud stack, and then the agent can help interact with our different type of database and help you understanding better about your situation. So I think this is a really, really cool tool that not only increase the productivity of data engineer, also extend the ability for people who are who doesn't have from data field. So that is pretty powerful.
Yes, and you can do all of this using any tool that you'd like, whether that be, again, Antigravity IDE, Antigravity CLI, other CLI tools, Codex, etc.
Yeah. So now we have this. We figure out the reason. We set up the DBT. Now I want to write a summary to CFO to report what we have. So let's continue.
All right. So I just put in a prompt to write an executive summary to the CFO, asking to quantify some things and project average order value over the next quarter. And I'm asking it to also use BigQuery's AI.FORECAST function. Now, AI.FORECAST uses a TimesFM model. And you can think of TimesFM almost like it's a pre-trained time series model. And what's really cool about it is it because it's a pre-trained model that we're using, we don't need to train on our historical data. In fact, it's trained on many, many billions of data points, and does a really fantastic job at zero-shotting your projections. You can think of it almost like how large language models are trained on so much stuff from the world. And when you ask it a question, it usually gives you a pretty good response back. TimesFM is very similar, except it was trained on a bunch of time series data. And when I give it my time series data, I get something back. So that's what TimesFM is and what we just ran.
Cool. So do we have this in BigQuery, or this is part of the agent kit?
This is in BigQuery, and it's also, we can take a quick look. It is also so it's a BigQuery function, and we have a skill here in BigQuery. Let me get rid of this. And we have a skill that looks at something like AI.FORECAST. So when we invoke, this skill will be invoked to get the syntax, so that when we generate SQL, when the agent generates SQL, it is generating using the correct syntax. So there is this developing with BigQuery skill that's part of the kit, but underneath it, we have specific like Google or BigQuery specific functions that a large language model might not know about. And we want to feed it this additional context. So the skill and the resources underneath it will be called at runtime. But yeah, this is a BigQuery function, AI.FORECAST.
I see. That's pretty powerful. I want to see the result. What are the summary we're going to share to CFO?
All right. So we have a little bit of a summary and a little bit of a preview of it here in the chat pane, but we also got this CFO exec summary back. And I think this is a lot more powerful. We have the executive summary, and we could see, we could read all of it. I'll let you read it, but the TLDR, I think of it, actually, we could ask for it. We get the gross margin analysis, the projections that we asked for using AI.FORECAST, just a ton of information here in this executive report.
Yeah.
Now, what I might want to ask is, give me a 2-sentence TLDR. Because this is a lot to read.
Yeah, and also I want to see some, visualize some data, because I feel like we are seeing a lot of data, and even like from the report, we are seeing a lot of like table summarizing. So I wonder if in our final report, final summary, I also want to visualize our existing data so that it's a more comprehensive report to as CFO or to other customer. How do we do that?
All right, so let's generate that. Let's generate a notebook that should have some visualizations associated with it. So I pasted a query in asking for a notebook, a Jupyter notebook, and we can see it start to use different skills like the notebook guidance skill, and the agent will also start calling the notebook's MCP. So it can do things like create markdown cells, it can create code cells, everything like that. So let's take a quick look. Okay, it did create this. So we saw this notebook generate in very little time, and now I can just run all cells. And we see, it's running faster than I can scroll.
Wow.
Awesome. So like average order value, we see dropped or dipped a little bit in January 2025. But it's really because of this B2B wholesale, which we don't have anywhere else. Continuing to look like, what is a channel volume shift? Well, we see that in January 2025, we got this B2B wholesale segment. So even though average order value may have gone down overall, we're adding new business, the B2B wholesale segment that we never had before. So our number of orders are going up. And then we could also look at product margin. So product margin, just against a bunch of categories that we sell in at Cymbal Pets. Of course, we see that B2B wholesale has a smaller margin than direct to consumer. So that's to be expected, but just good to see. These are the types of visualizations that we could give to our CFO too. Is that what you're looking for, Annie?
Yeah, I'm a visual person, so I love to see things, I love to see diagrams and things like that. It's awesome. A really comprehensive report. Now I not only know the reason we set up the DBT, and we also have a comprehensive report with all the visual included. That is amazing.
Yeah. And this is just a Jupyter notebook that most data scientists use anyway, except it was generated for us super fast and it runs. So awesome.
Yeah. So Jeff, you know that I'm also a visual person. I like to see the diagram. I also have a quick demo that showcases a website with all the data we have right now. So we can play around to see how we can use in Data Agent Kit to modify the data. At the same time, how does that reflect on actual website? How's that sound?
Awesome. Yeah, let's check that out. I know we just built the report for the CFO, but if we can use this data in other ways, I'd love to see it.
So Jeff, what you look at right now is a website I built that it actually showcases all the data, like all the pet supply stuff over here. Like everything in the data, now you can visualize them on the website. For those of you who are coming from a data engineering background, now with AI, it's easily to visualizing them not only to a diagram. You can also visualizing. You can also build an actual website or application to see your data and reflect your data. But so this is the website that showcases everything. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to just do some search and editing from my coding agent site that's already have Data Agent Kit installed. And I'm going to see how that's quickly reflect on the actual website. So, all right, what I'm going to do right now is I want to add a new product to this website. This product is, I want to have this is the name of the product. This is the information, and I will use the ML generate text to generate all those information. Jeff, do you know what is the ML generated text and what are the model we're using if we're calling this?
Sure. So ML.generate text will take the context that you just gave it, like the product name, any other brand description, any images that you might want to give it, and it will generate what you're asking for. In this case, the vibe tag and the shopper blurb. So it'll pass everything to a Gemini endpoint, and then it will return those results back so that you can put them in your BigQuery environment.
Sure. Let's take a look. Now it says it's successfully generating this and inserting this, and let's take a look on the website. So yeah, you can see this is senior cat urinary cat care kibble. It's a new product. We just inserted to the website. It's like inserted in real time. That's pretty cool. And what's
That's
next
awesome.
is, yeah, next is when I want to do the search on the website. For example, I want to do the senior cat related thing, or my cat needs some actual care. You can see that we are not able to search that product because we haven't generated the embedding from that product, so that the semantic search doesn't support from our website. So what's next is we want to create an embedding for it so that it works for the search on the website. And we're going to do that with our data agent kit as well.
And so in the data agent kit, you're going to ask for an embedding column to be added to that row?
Yeah, exactly. So here is my prompt. I'll say this product isn't in the product embedding, so semantic search cannot find it. And I want to generate the embedding so it becomes searchable.
Awesome. So product embeddings exist. It's already a column since you're already doing semantic search, and we just need to create the value, the embedding value for it.
Yeah. Well, it says it is now returned the results from the semantic search from the test search. And let's give a try on this website. Now you can see this website, and previously when we do the senior cat search, we couldn't find a result. And let's take a look at it again. Oh yeah, we find this result, and actually the top. And because this is a semantic search, so if you want to search something different, for example, my cat has a urinary issue, and then let's see. Yeah, you're also suggesting this, right? So because now we have this embedded in the table, so that anything related to this product, we can search them. And for the whole process, I do not have to open Google Cloud Console to see them, to query them, to testing them. I do not have to write code myself to add embedding myself, or I do not have to add querying myself, or add the command myself. Yeah, so it's very convenient if you want to use this for your web development or app development. You want to like changing anything with database or you want to modify database, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love how your example here, you wanted to add a new product. You have a new product. You kind of know what it's called. You know a little bit about it, but you're asking BigQuery to generate a description, generate an embedding, and make it usable and insert it into the table so it's usable on this website. That's super cool.
Thank you. So imagine that you're a small business founder, and now you're not only able to analyzing your product information with Data Agent Kit, and you're able to generate notebook to visualizing them. You can also even build a website and then updating all the product directly with the help of Data Agent Kit with any coding tool you want. Like, because right now it's supporting Antigravity, also supporting things like Cloud Code and Cursor, right?
Yeah, any VS Code for like Antigravity or Cursor, Claude Code, Codex, Gemini CLI, Antigravity CLI, all supported.
Yeah.
And we'll leave the description, or the links to the extension for the VS Code forks, as well as the plugin links for other tools in the description.
Yeah. I think that's it for today's episode. I hope that you learn everything you need about how to use Data Agent Kit and why you're using it and how to improve your productivity, how to be very creative about it, right? Anything you want to add, Jeff?
No, I just encourage everybody to try it out. Give it a shot, see how it works on your own use case, like interacting with your data using natural language. It's really neat to see, either whether it's like answering questions from your CFO or helping, augment your website. The Data Agent Kit works across your Google Cloud or Data Cloud estate.
And tell us how you're going to use Data Agent Kit in your use case, and leave them in the comments, and we're going to review. We will reply to every single comment if you share what's your use case. Yeah. Thank you everyone for watching the episode, and thank you, Jeff, for joining us today. And I will see you in a future one. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.